This is Machu Picchu, as the Incas would have seen it 500 years ago when they arrived here from their imperial capital of Cusco. There would have been thatched roofs on the buildings, but otherwise it would have looked just like this.
The city boasts more than 600 terraces, over 170 buildings, thousands of steps, several temples, and 16 fountains. The Inca utilized hundreds of thousands of stones to build their city, some massive. Fortunately, they didn't have to go far to find construction materials.
People often ask, how did the Incas get these stones here to build this city? And you're looking at the answer. This is the main quarry of Machu Picchu, a massive jumble of white granite which they used to create this splendid city that you can see behind us.
The quality of Inca stonework is legendary. Important buildings exhibit a precision of stone fitting that almost defies explanation. After 500 years, a knife blade can't be inserted between the stones.
This is the rear wall of the Temple of the Sun, probably the most important temple in Machu Picchu, and fittingly the finest wall of the whole site. An extraordinary example of Inca stonework, beautiful level courses, each tapering to a smaller height as they go to the top.
How did they achieve such precision? What sophisticated tools did they use? They didn't have steel chisels. They didn't even have iron chisels. Remarkably, without iron tools, the Inca used rock to carve rock.
This is a hammerstone, and you look at it and you say, well, that's just a river rock. Precisely. They used river rocks, the hardest stone they could find.
But here's a stone you see that was being cut in the quarries. They used hammer stones, very hard river stones, to pound away the rock. Some of the stones that were worked at Machu Picchu were very, very large. And this is a very big hammerstone that must have been used to break off very big chunks of stone. Might even have been used by 2 people. This stone probably weighs 30 pounds, and it comes from the river, so it must have been hauled up on the back of somebody all the way up here to Machu Picchu.
Some of the largest stones used at Machu Picchu weigh more than 20 tons. How were they moved? The most important buildings relied on the precise fit of the stone and their sheer weight to keep them in place. But there is evidence that less important buildings used mortar, made with a combination of clay, earth, and small stones. Beside the city's stonework, another feature that distinguishes Machu Picchu is the terrace system. The terraces served 2 purposes. They provided a place to grow crops and also kept the city from sliding off the mountain.
This is a fairly typical terrace here at Machu Picchu. It's about 7 feet high, about 10 feet wide, and there are hundreds of terraces like this one here. And these terraces are the secret of why this site remains so well preserved and so intact despite 400 years of neglect under the forest.
The Inca built terraces to cope with the 79 inches of annual rainfall.
Constructing a terrace is what's really important. The terrace starts out with a coarse rock base, which provides good water flow and stability. On top of these stones then would be smaller stones, and then a gravel layer, and then a sand layer, and then on top of that would be topsoil. And the topsoil is oftentimes 3 feet thick, rich topsoil that has been brought in and artificially placed to form the terrace for crops.
Topsoil was most likely brought to the site from the floodplain 1,600 feet below, basket by basket. stratified construction allowed rainwater to gently percolate down through the terraces. Until recently, scientists only speculated as to what crops might have been raised to feed the city's population. But in the mid-1990s, soil samples proved maize was the primary crop grown at Machu Picchu, along with potatoes and even avocados. In total, Machu Picchu had 12 acres of terraced land within its walls on which to grow crops. Knowing the type of food grown and the amount of land available led to an interesting discovery.
What we concluded was that the terraces of Machu Picchu could not have supplied more than 55 people with appropriate nutrients. That meant that food had to be imported.
Scientists estimate Machu Picchu had 300 to 750 residents. So where did the food come from?
There's the great Urubamba River floodplain 1,600 feet below, and we know that there was farming down below because of the wide floodplain.
The terraces served Machu Picchu better as claws, helping the city grip onto the mountain. Without them, the buildings would have tumbled down the mountain